You think you can erase me? Watch me burn your kingdom down. Elizabeth stands in the center of the ballroom, champagne glass trembling in her hand. Around her, 200 guests in designer suits and silk dresses freeze mid-conversation. Her mother, Margaret's face drains white as snow. The crystal chandeliers overhead cast shadows across Elizabeth's face. At 29, she's striking, blonde hair swept back, green eyes burning with something dangerous, something years in the making. She raises her voice, clear as a bell, cutting through the murmur of Manhattan's elite. I know everyone's wondering why I'm here tonight, why the black sheep daughter showed up to Daddy's anniversary celebration. Richard Burton, her father, steps forward from the crowd. His jaw clenches. 70 pairs of eyes dart between father and daughter. Elizabeth's lips curve into a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Well, I came to give you all a gift. The truth. She turns to face Margaret directly. Her mother's fingers clutch a string of pearls worth more than most people's cars. Mom, do you want to tell everyone where you were last Thursday afternoon? Or should I? The room temperature drops 10 degrees. Margaret's mouth opens, closes, opens again like a fish drowning in air. You were at the Mandarin Oriental, room 2407, with David Hoffman. Gasps ripple through the crowd. David Hoffman, Richard's business partner for 20 years, stands near the bar. His Scotch glass shatters on the marble floor. Elizabeth doesn't flinch. She's rehearsed this moment in her head 1,000 times. 3 years. That's how long it's been going on. While Dad built his empire, you built your little secret. Richard's face turns crimson. The veins in his neck bulge. Guests pull out phones. Some recording, others texting frantically. Margaret lunges forward, her voice a desperate whisper. Elizabeth, please, don't do this. But Elizabeth steps back, her heels clicking against the floor like a countdown. Don't do what, Mother? Tell the truth? Isn't that what you always taught me? Oh, wait, no. You taught me I was worthless. The flashback hits like lightning through her mind. She's 7 years old, standing in the kitchen of their Connecticut estate. Margaret towers over her, lips pursed in disgust. Look at you. Clumsy. Stupid. You'll never be good enough, Elizabeth. Not like your sister. Another memory crashes in. She's 15, showing her father a report card. All as. Richard doesn't look up from his newspaper. That's expected. Not exceptional. Natalie got Student of the Month again. And there's Natalie, her younger sister by 3 years. Perfect golden child. Designer clothes. New car at 16. Everything handed to her on a silver platter while Elizabeth worked 2 jobs through college. Back in the ballroom, Elizabeth's voice grows stronger. You want to know what's really funny? Grandmother left me everything. Her estate, her investments. $3.2 million. Margaret's eyes widen. Richard takes a step back. But I never saw a dime. Because you forged her will. You erased my name and split it between yourselves. The crowd erupts in whispers. Someone near the back shouts a question. Camera flashes pop like fireworks. Elizabeth pulls out her phone, holds it high. I have the original will. I have the bank records. I have everything. Her voice cracks just slightly, a fracture in the armor. You stole from me. You belittled me my entire life. You made me feel like I was nothing, like I didn't deserve to breathe the same air. Tears threaten, but she blinks them back. Not here, not now. So tonight, I'm returning the favor. David, I hope that affair was worth it, because Richard's company just lost its biggest investor, me. She pulls out a folder from her purse, tosses it onto the gift table. That's my lawyer's contact information. You'll be hearing from him Monday morning about the will, about the fraud, about everything. Richard finds his voice, harsh and booming. You ungrateful little bitch, after everything we gave you? Elizabeth laughs, cold and sharp. Gave me? You gave me trauma, You gave me years of therapy. You gave me nightmares. She looks around the room at the faces staring back, some horrified, some sympathetic, all transfixed. But you know what you didn't give me? The one thing I needed most. Her voice drops to barely above a whisper, but everyone hears it. Love. The word hangs in the air, like smoke. Margaret reaches for her, mascara starting to run. Elizabeth, baby, please. We can talk about this. But Elizabeth is already walking toward the exit. Her heels echo in the massive space. The crowd parts like the Red Sea. She stops at the door, turns back one final time. Enjoy the party. It's the last one you'll be able to afford. The doors close behind her with a soft click. Outside in the cool night air, Elizabeth's hands finally stop shaking. She pulls out her phone, dials her attorney. It's done. Inside, the party implodes. Richard screams at Margaret. Guests scatter. David Hoffman slips out the back. Natalie, 26 and spoiled, films everything on her phone, already thinking of how to spin this on social media. But Elizabeth? Elizabeth walks to her car, slides into the driver's seat, and finally lets the tears fall. Years of pain, years of silence, years of swallowing every insult, every dismissal, every moment she was made to feel small. Tonight, she made herself big. Tonight, she chose herself. So here's the question that echoes in the darkness. What would you do if your family betrayed you and stole everything you deserved? Stay silent. Let them win. Watch them destroy you piece by piece. Or would you rise up and fight for your dignity, your truth, your very soul? 3 weeks before the party, Elizabeth sits in a lawyer's office in Lower Manhattan. The walls are lined with leather-bound law books. Sunlight streams through floor-to-ceiling windows. She opens a manila folder. Inside, 2 documents side by side. Her hands start to shake. The first document is her grandmother's original will, dated March 2019. Clear as day, it names Elizabeth Grace Burton as the sole beneficiary of the estate. $3.2 million. The beach house in the Hamptons, the investment portfolio. The second document is what her parents filed with probate court. Same date, same notary seal. But the handwriting is slightly different. The signature slants wrong. And Elizabeth's name? Gone. Replaced with Margaret Burton and Richard Burton. She traces her finger over her grandmother's real signature. The woman who raised her when her parents were too busy. The woman who told her she was enough. They erased me. They literally erased me from her final words. Her grandmother died 6 months ago. Elizabeth was in California at the time, working 80-hour weeks at a tech startup, trying to prove herself worthy. She flew home for the funeral. Margaret hugged her at the wake, whispering condolences. Richard patted her shoulder awkwardly. Natalie barely looked up from her phone. 2 weeks later, they told her grandmother left everything to them. Elizabeth believed it. Of course she did. Why would her own parents lie? The memory burns like acid. She'd gone to the county clerk's office on a hunch. Something her grandmother said a year before she died, during a quiet afternoon at the beach house. Lizzie, I'm making sure you're taken care of. No matter what happens, promise me you'll fight for what's yours. Elizabeth had laughed it off then. Now those words felt like a warning from beyond the grave. The discovery sent her spiraling back through every family dinner, every holiday, every moment she'd been made to feel invisible. She remembers Thanksgiving 2 years ago. The dining room table stretches 12 feet, covered in fine china and crystal glasses. Margaret sits at one end, Richard at the other. Natalie lounges in her chair, scrolling through Instagram. Elizabeth passes the mashed potatoes. Her mother doesn't acknowledge her. So, Mom, I got promoted to senior analyst. It comes with a 20% raise. Margaret sips her wine, eyes cold. How nice! Natalie just got invited to the Hamptons by the Vanderbilts. Now that's an accomplishment. The silverware clinks against plates. The sound feels deafening in the silence. Richard cuts his turkey, doesn't look up. Elizabeth, did you call the accountant about that tax thing? You know I don't have time for that. That's the thing about her father. She's not his daughter. She's his assistant, his problem solver, his disappointment. Natalie giggles at something on her phone. Oh my God, did you guys see that Elizabeth's ex is dating a model now? I mean, makes sense. He definitely upgraded. Margaret smiles. Actually smiles. Elizabeth's fork freezes halfway to her mouth. The rage builds, but she swallows it down like poison. Another memory surfaces. Elizabeth at 16, showing her mother a painting she'd worked on for weeks. Margaret barely glances at it. Art won't pay the bills, Elizabeth. Maybe focus on something useful. Look at Natalie, captain of the cheer squad. That's the kind of success that matters. Every memory is a knife. Every moment, a cut. Margaret's favorite weapon isn't her words, it's her silence. The way she can make Elizabeth feel like a ghost in her own home. The way she lavishes attention on Natalie while Elizabeth stands 3 feet away, invisible. And Richard? He's weak. A man so obsessed with his reputation and his bank account that he sold his soul years ago. He lets Margaret run the show because it's easier. Because confronting her would require a spine he doesn't have. Natalie is their masterpiece. 24 years old, never worked a day in her life. Designer bags line her closet, her apartment in Tribeca, daddy's money, her car, daddy's money. Her entire existence? Built on the backs of people she looks down on, including her own sister. Elizabeth closes the folder in the lawyer's office. Her jaw sets with determination. I need someone who can bury them. The lawyer nods, scribbles a name on his business card. David Brenner, best litigation attorney in New York. Tell him Marcus sent you. 2 days later, Elizabeth walks into David Brenner's office in Midtown. It's smaller than she expected, cluttered with case files and coffee cups. A menorah sits on the windowsill next to a photo of 2 golden retrievers. David stands to greet her, mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, sharp brown eyes that miss nothing. His handshake is firm but not aggressive. He listens as she lays out everything, the forged will, the years of abuse, the theft of her inheritance. When she finishes, he leans back in his chair. A slight smile plays at his lips. Let me get this straight. Your parents thought they could forge a legal document, steal $3 million, and no one would notice? Elizabeth nods, exhausted. David chuckles, shaking his head. If they thought a forged signature could fool me, they clearly haven't watched enough courtroom dramas. I've seen better forgeries in high school bathroom stalls. Despite everything, Elizabeth laughs. It's the first real laugh she's had in months. David opens his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to request a handwriting analysis. We're going to subpoena their financial records. We're going to dig so deep into their lives they'll wish they'd never heard the word inheritance. He looks up at her, his expression serious now. But I need to know. Are you ready for this? Because once we start, there's no going back. This will get ugly. Elizabeth thinks of her grandmother's voice. Fight for what's yours. She meets David's eyes, unflinching. I'm ready to watch them burn. The morning after the party, Richard's phone rings 43 times before noon. Investors pulling out. Board members demanding meetings. The New York Times business section has already picked up the story. Partner caught in affair with CEO's wife, company in crisis. Richard stands in his home office, still wearing yesterday's tuxedo. Whiskey bottle in one hand, phone in the other. The screen glows with red numbers. Stock prices plummeting. Margaret sits on the leather couch behind him, mascara smudged, hands trembling. Fix this, Richard. You have to fix this. But there's nothing to fix. David Hoffman resigned at 6 a.m. via email. 3 major clients terminated their contracts by 8. The company's reputation, built over 30 years, crumbled in 12 hours. Richard hurls the whiskey bottle against the wall. Glass explodes. Amber liquid drips down the expensive wallpaper. That ungrateful bitch destroyed us. His voice cracks. This man who built an empire on handshakes and reputation now watches it burn because of secrets and lies. Margaret's phone buzzes. Another message. Another friend asking if it's true. Another social circle closing its doors. Meanwhile, Elizabeth sits in David Brenner's office signing documents. The lawsuit moves fast. David filed the petition to challenge the will 3 days ago. He attached the handwriting analysis. Attached bank records showing suspicious transfers. Attached witness statements from the original notary, who never saw Margaret or Richard sign anything. The judge fast-tracked the hearing. One look at the evidence and her face hardened. This is fraud. Clear as day. Richard and Margaret show up to court with their own lawyer. A man in an expensive suit who charges $800 an hour and knows he's defending the indefensible. Elizabeth sits across the aisle. She doesn't look at them, doesn't acknowledge their existence. The hearing lasts 2 hours. David presents documents with surgical precision. Each piece of evidence another nail in the coffin. When it's over, the judge rules in Elizabeth's favor. Full restitution of the inheritance, plus interest, plus legal fees. Margaret gasps. Richard's face goes gray. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarm. Elizabeth says nothing. David handles the press with professional grace. But Margaret? Margaret chases Elizabeth down the courthouse steps. Elizabeth, baby, please. We need to talk. Elizabeth stops, turns slowly. Her expression could freeze fire. Margaret reaches for her hand, the same hand that used to stroke Elizabeth's hair when she was little, before the poison set in. Sweetheart, I know things got out of hand. But we're family. We can work through this. I promise. The word promise hangs in the air between them. Elizabeth looks at her mother, really looks at her. This woman who gave birth to her. This woman who spent 29 years making her feel worthless. Your promises are worth as much as the ink on that forged will. She walks away. Margaret stands on the courthouse steps, alone, cameras flashing. The legal victory should be enough, but it's not. Because 2 days later, Natalie launches her counterattack. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, every platform becomes her weapon. She posts photos of Elizabeth from high school, unflattering angles, bad hair days, captions dripping with mockery. My sister is mentally unstable. She's always been jealous of our family. This is just another attention-seeking stunt. She films tearful videos. Elizabeth is tearing our family apart over money. She's lying about everything. My parents are good people who don't deserve this. The posts go viral. Thousands of comments. Half supporting Natalie. Half calling her out. Elizabeth watches from her apartment. Each notification a small sting. But she's been stung before. She's built up immunity. David calls. I'm seeing the posts. We could sue for defamation. But Elizabeth has a better idea. She opens her laptop, starts typing. The article takes her 3 days to write. She pours everything into it, not with rage, not with bitterness, with cold, calculated truth. She titles it, When Your Family Steals More Than Money, They Steal Your Soul. She details everything. The forged will with receipts. The years of emotional abuse with specific examples. Margaret's affair with evidence. The lawsuit outcome. But more than that, she writes about the invisible wounds. The way toxic families operate. The gaslighting. The manipulation. The way they make you question your own reality. She doesn't write it for revenge. She writes it because somewhere out there, someone else is sitting in a gilded cage wondering if they're crazy. She publishes it on Medium at midnight on a Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, it has 10,000 views. By Wednesday afternoon, 50,000. By Thursday, it's everywhere. BuzzFeed picks it up. The Huffington Post. Psychology Today features it. Reddit threads explode with people sharing their own stories. The article doesn't just go viral. It becomes a movement. Elizabeth's email floods with messages. Thank you for speaking up. This is my story too. You gave me the courage to leave. But the most important emails come from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. The public outcry forces their hand. Forging legal documents isn't just a civil matter, it's a crime. Friday morning, 2 detectives knock on Richard and Margaret's door. Elizabeth watches the news coverage from her apartment. Her parents being let out in handcuffs feels surreal, like watching a movie about someone else's life. David texts her. They're being charged with fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Looking at serious time. Elizabeth doesn't reply immediately. She walks to her window, looks out at the city. Manhattan stretches before her. Millions of people living their own dramas, fighting their own battles. She thinks about her grandmother, wonders if she's watching from somewhere. I fought for what was mine, Grandma, just like you asked. Her phone buzzes again. This time it's Natalie. The message is short. You destroyed our family. Elizabeth reads it twice. Then she types her response. No, I freed myself from people who were destroying me. She blocks the number. Outside, the sun sets over the Hudson River. The sky bleeds orange and purple, beautiful and terrible at the same time. Elizabeth makes herself tea, sits on her couch, opens her laptop. The article's comment section has grown to thousands of responses. Stories of survival, stories of escape, stories of people choosing themselves over toxicity. She reads one comment that stops her cold. You showed me it's possible to walk away and still be okay. Thank you for being brave enough to burn it all down. Elizabeth closes the laptop. For the first time in weeks, she sleeps through the night. The investigation moves faster than anyone expects. 2 days after the detectives knock on their door, Richard and Margaret sit in separate interrogation rooms. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead. Metal chairs scrape against concrete floors. Margaret cracks first. She offers to testify against Richard if they reduce her charges. But there's nothing to reduce. They're both guilty. The evidence doesn't care who points fingers. The DA's office builds an airtight case. Forensic handwriting experts, financial records showing the money trail, testimony from the original attorney who drafted the real will. David calls Elizabeth with updates. They're offering a plea deal, 7 years each. Elizabeth sits at her kitchen table, coffee growing cold. What happens if they don't take it? David's voice is steady. Trial, possibly 10 to 15 years if convicted. Richard refuses the deal. His ego won't let him plead guilty. Margaret follows his lead because she always does. The trial lasts 3 weeks. Elizabeth attends every day, sits in the gallery, back straight, eyes forward. Reporters crowd the courthouse. The story has everything: wealth, betrayal, family drama. On day 12, Richard takes the stand. His lawyer tries to paint him as a loving father who made a mistake. But David destroys him on cross-examination. Mr. Burton, you signed your mother-in-law's name to a legal document. Is that correct? Richard's jaw clenches. It was complicated. David doesn't blink. Yes or no, sir? Did you forge her signature? The silence stretches for 10 seconds. 15. 20. Yes. The courtroom erupts. The judge bangs her gavel. Margaret testifies next. She cries. Talks about how much she loved her mother, how she never meant to hurt anyone. But the jury sees through it. 12 faces, unmoved. The verdict comes back on a Friday afternoon. Guilty on all counts: fraud, forgery, conspiracy to commit theft. Sentencing happens 2 weeks later. Richard gets 12 years. Margaret gets 10. Elizabeth watches them being led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. Her father's shoulders slump. Her mother's heels click against the floor one last time before they trade them for prison slides. Something inside Elizabeth cracks. Not breaks, just cracks. enough to let light in. She should feel victorious. She should feel vindicated. Instead, she feels hollow. That night, she meets David for coffee to sign the final paperwork. The inheritance is officially hers. $3.2 million plus 3 years of interest. A small cafe in the West Village, exposed brick walls, jazz playing softly. Elizabeth stirs her latte, watching the foam swirl. Is it supposed to feel like this? David looks up from his briefcase. Like what? Elizabeth searches for the words. Like winning and losing at the same time. David nods slowly. He's seen this before. The complicated grief that comes with justice. You didn't just lose your parents today. You lost the idea of what parents should be. That's worth mourning. Before Elizabeth can respond, the cafe door slams open. Natalie storms in, eyes wild, makeup smeared. She's lost weight. Her designer clothes hang loose. Elizabeth stands instinctively. Her heart hammers. Natalie crosses the cafe in 4 strides. You did this. You destroyed everything. Her voice is shrill. Other customers turn to stare. Elizabeth keeps her voice calm. Natalie, you need to leave. But Natalie is beyond reason, beyond logic. She's watching her perfect life crumble, and she needs someone to blame. She lunges. Her hands grab Elizabeth's hair. Nails scratch at her face. They crash into a table. Coffee mugs shatter. David jumps up, but Natalie is already swinging. Her fist connects with Elizabeth's cheekbone. Elizabeth doesn't fight back. She covers her face, tries to protect herself. Other customers pull Natalie off. She's screaming, crying, flailing. The cafe owner is already on the phone with police. And the security camera in the corner? It captures everything in crystal clear HD. The police arrive in 4 minutes. Natalie is arrested for assault. She spends the night in jail. Elizabeth goes to the hospital. Split lip, bruised cheek, scratches on her neck. The attending physician asks if she wants to press charges. Elizabeth looks at herself in the mirror, purple blooming under her eye. Yes. Natalie's trial is quick. The video evidence is damning. Her lawyer argues emotional distress, temporary insanity brought on by family trauma. The judge isn't moved. 2 years probation, mandatory anger management, a restraining order keeping her 500 feet from Elizabeth at all times. Natalie sobs in the courtroom, but there's no one left to comfort her. Her parents are in prison, her friends have disappeared, her social media following turned against her. She's alone, just like she made Elizabeth feel for years. 3 weeks later, Elizabeth visits the correctional facility upstate. She doesn't know why she goes. Some questions don't have answers. They bring her parents out separately. Orange jumpsuits. No makeup for Margaret. No expensive suit for Richard. Margaret tries to apologize through the plexiglass. Her voice cracks on the phone. Elizabeth, I'm so sorry. I was a terrible mother. I was cruel and I was wrong. Elizabeth stares at this woman who gave birth to her. This stranger. You're right. You were. Richard doesn't apologize. He asks about the business, asks if she can help him appeal. Elizabeth hangs up the phone mid-sentence, walks out. That night, she sits in her apartment. The inheritance money sits untouched in an account. She hasn't spent $1. She finds a photo of her grandmother in a box, black and white, young and smiling, before life hardened her. Elizabeth holds it against her chest and finally lets herself cry. Not for her parents, not for Natalie. For the little girl who waited 29 years to be loved by people who couldn't love anyone but themselves. She cries until there's nothing left. And then she whispers to the photograph. Sometimes freedom comes only when you let your family burn in the fire they lit themselves. The photo doesn't answer. But somehow, Elizabeth feels her grandmother's presence. Warm, approving, free. Outside her window, Manhattan glitters. 8 million people. 8 million stories. Tomorrow, Elizabeth will start writing her own. 6 months after the trial, Elizabeth packs her life into 2 suitcases. Everything she owns fits in the trunk of her Honda. Clothes, books, her grandmother's photo in a silver frame. That's it. She stands in her Manhattan apartment one last time. Empty rooms echo. Sunlight streams through bare windows. She's leaving behind more than an address. She's leaving behind ghosts. The drive to Seattle takes 4 days. Elizabeth follows Interstate 90 west, through Pennsylvania mountains, across Ohio flatlands, past Chicago's skyline glittering on the horizon. She sleeps in roadside motels with thin walls and flickering neon signs, eats diner food at truck stops, watches America unfold through her windshield. Somewhere in Montana, she pulls over at a rest stop. The sky stretches forever. No buildings, no noise, just wind and space. She breathes deeper than she has in years. On day 4, she crosses into Washington. The landscape changes. Evergreen trees replace cornfields. Mountains rise like ancient guardians. Then she sees it. Seattle. Rain-soaked and beautiful. The Space Needle piercing gray clouds. Her new home. Elizabeth finds an apartment in Capitol Hill. 1 bedroom. Hardwood floors. A window overlooking Pike Street. Rent is half what she paid in New York. She furnishes it slowly. A couch from IKEA. Plants that don't need much light. Curtains that let the Seattle rain blur the outside world into watercolor. She takes a job at a nonprofit, helping women escape domestic violence. The work is hard. The stories are heartbreaking. But for the first time, Elizabeth's pain has purpose. At night, she writes. Her blog starts simple, breaking free, finding me. Just her story, raw, unfiltered. The kind of honesty that cuts through the internet's noise. She writes about the forged will, the years of abuse, the moment she chose herself. But more than that, she writes about healing, about the messy, non-linear process of rebuilding after your foundation crumbles. The first post gets 20 views, then 50, then hundreds. Women comment. This is my mother. I thought I was alone. You gave me the courage to leave. Within 3 months, Breaking Free, Finding Me, has 10,000 followers. Within 6 months, 50,000. Publishers reach out, podcasts want interviews, but Elizabeth keeps it simple. Just her words, just her truth. One rainy Tuesday, she's working at a coffee shop in Fremont. Her laptop glows, rain drums against the windows. A voice interrupts her typing. Is this seat taken? Elizabeth looks up. He's tall, dark hair, glasses, holding a dripping umbrella and apologetic smile. Go ahead. He sits, opens his own laptop. They work in comfortable silence for an hour. Then his phone rings. His ringtone is the theme from The Office. Elizabeth laughs despite herself. He grins, declining the call. Sorry. My friend thinks he's hilarious. I'm Mark, by the way. Elizabeth. They talk for 3 hours. He's a software engineer at Amazon. Moved to Seattle from Ohio 2 years ago. Loves hiking even though he's terrible at it. Has a golden retriever named Pancake. He makes her laugh. Really laugh. The kind that comes from your stomach. When they leave the coffee shop, he asks for her number. Elizabeth hesitates, then types it into his phone. 3 dates turn into 10. 10 turn into staying over. Staying over turns into his toothbrush at her apartment. Mark is everything her father wasn't. Kind, present. He listens when she talks, asks questions, remembers details. When she tells him about her family, he doesn't flinch, doesn't judge, just holds her hand. One night, 6 months into dating, they're cooking dinner. Pasta with too much garlic. Wine that costs $12. Mark looks at her across the kitchen. You know you're remarkable, right? Elizabeth stirs the sauce. I'm really not. He walks over, turns off the stove, takes her face in his hands. You escaped hell and built heaven. That's remarkable. She kisses him, tastes wine and hope. A year after moving to Seattle, Elizabeth gets an email. Women Rising, a nonprofit empowerment organization, wants her to speak at their annual conference. 500 attendees, live streamed to thousands more. Elizabeth's hands shake reading the invitation. Mark finds her staring at her laptop. What's wrong? She shows him the email. They want me to speak, in front of hundreds of people. Mark smiles. So tell them yes. The conference is held at the Washington State Convention Center. Elizabeth stands backstage, heart pounding. She can hear the crowd murmuring. Mark squeezes her hand. You've got this. The moderator calls her name. Elizabeth walks onto the stage. Lights blind her for a moment. Then her eyes adjust. 500 faces look back, waiting, hoping. She takes the microphone, breathes. 2 years ago, I stood in a ballroom and burned my family's world to the ground. The audience leans forward. She tells them everything, not the sanitized version, the real version, the messy, painful, complicated truth. She talks about the forgery, the abuse, the moment she chose herself over people who never chose her. But I didn't come here to talk about revenge. I came to talk about what happened after. Her voice grows stronger. After the fire, after the ashes, after I thought I'd lost everything. She pauses, lets the silence build. I found out that happiness isn't found in a toxic family. It begins the moment you have the courage to walk away. Women in the audience nod. Some cry. Elizabeth's eyes blaze with conviction. I lost my parents, my sister, my inheritance, my name in social circles, everything I thought defined me. Her voice drops to barely above a whisper, but the microphone catches every word. Only to finally find myself. The audience erupts. Standing ovation, tears, applause that shakes the rafters. Elizabeth steps off stage. Mark is waiting in the wings. He pulls her into his arms. I'm so proud of you. That night, her blog crashes from traffic. The speech clips go viral. Millions of views, thousands of comments. But Elizabeth doesn't check her phone. She sits with Mark on her couch. Pancake the dog snoring at their feet. Rain pattering against windows. She opens her laptop, starts writing a new post. The subject line, how to start over when everything falls apart. Her grandmother's photo watches from the bookshelf. Elizabeth smiles at it. I made it, Grandma. I'm free. Outside, Seattle glows through the rain. Somewhere in New York, her parents sit in prison cells. Natalie posts bitter comments online that no one reads. But here, Elizabeth is building something beautiful from the ruins. She's helping women escape. She's loving and being loved. She's speaking truth into darkness. She's alive. And that's the greatest revenge of all.